If there were only one mystery in the IELTS exam, it would be the use of idioms. Now, we may not know a lot about idioms because people say different things about idioms in IELTS. Some people say that you cannot use idioms in IELTS. Some people say the other way around, that you need to, you have to, you must use idioms in IELTS. Some people also say that they didn't use idioms, but they still got high scores. Other people say that they didn't use idioms, that's why they didn't get high scores. In today's episode, I'm going to answer all these questions. And I'm going to tell you everything I know about idioms in IELTS. This is Huyen, and you are listening to IELTS with Huyen, the podcast dedicated to people who would like to self-study for the IELTS exam. I am an IELTS teacher, and I teach IELTS for a living. If you would like to learn more about this exam, if you would like to take my classes, don't hesitate to contact me. But for now, this episode is for free. Everything is shared on IELTS with Huyen. The podcast is free. Just listen to it. Let's go. Before making this episode, I asked people about idioms, and I asked them what they know about idioms and what they think about idioms. And I also asked them to give me some idioms that they find most common. And in this episode, I'm going to answer all the questions that related to idioms that are asked by my followers, as well as give you 10 common idioms that people shared with me. Before I answer the questions, I would like to share with you a little bit about idioms. Now, idioms are words, phrases, expressions that have different meanings from the meanings of the words that form them. For example, if something is a piece of cake, it is very easy. For example, for some people, the IELTS exam is just a piece of cake. Maybe another example. If something costs an arm and a leg, it is very expensive. For example, the mic I am using right now cost me an arm and a leg, and I don't have money for food anymore. So now you know what idioms are. The first question I would like to answer in today's episode is whether we can use idioms in IELTS. The answer is yes, but it depends on where you're going to use it. Idioms are informal, so you can use idioms in IELTS speaking and in informal letters. You cannot use idioms in the graph reports. You cannot use idiom in formal letters. And certainly you cannot use idioms in IELTS essays. If you insist on using idioms in formal writing, it will affect your score. So the first question is answered, right? Yes, you can use idioms, but it depends on where you're going to use it. The next question is, are idioms necessary for IELTS speaking? The answer is yes, they are necessary for IELTS speaking. But the right question is whether it is a must to use idioms in IELTS speaking. The answer is maybe not, because idioms are mentioned in the public version of IELTS band descriptors as a part of idiomatic language. Now, idiomatic language includes idioms, phrasal verbs, and collocations. So it is not necessarily true that you don't use idioms, you will not get high scores in IELTS speaking. In fact, if you use phrasal verbs and collocations perfectly, there is a high chance you will not need idioms in your speaking performance. But will you get a maximum scores if you don't use idioms? Maybe it's still possible. Again, some people say that in order to get a 9 in IELTS speaking, if you don't use idioms, it is impossible. Now, I have a story like that. A few years ago, I got a student who was excellent in English. His English was excellent. His level was very high, and I did expect him to get a 9 in speaking. However, he got only 8.5. The reason that we came up with was because he forgot to use any idioms in his speaking performance. Now, I am not so sure whether it is true or not, because he might be a little stressed, nervous. That's why he didn't perform as well as we were practicing. But there was a high chance that because of the lack of idioms, he didn't get a 9. However, 8.5 was already a very high score and is very good. He was very happy with that, so we didn't try to retake the exam. Another common question about idioms is whether we can use any idioms in IELTS speaking. The answer is No. The idioms you use have to be common, first of all, and then you have to use them correctly and naturally. I know that raining cats and dogs is not very common in the UK, but I recently got to know that raining cats and dogs is very popular in South Africa, and it is used like on a daily basis. So when you use an idiom, make sure that it is common and make sure you use them correctly and naturally, because some idioms have to be a part of a sentence and some other idioms can be used by itself. As I said in the beginning, before making this episode, I asked people about the common idioms that they can think of. And I have gathered all the information and I came up with a list of 10 most common idioms that people recommended to me. And I'm going to share with you today. The first common idiom that I got on the list is a blessing in disguise. So, if something is a blessing in disguise, it is a good thing, but it seemed to be bad at first. For example, not getting an IELTS score I wanted was a blessing in disguise because after reviewing everything, I was able to get it and now I understand English better. The next common idiom that I got was get out of hand. It means to be out of control. For example, everything was getting out of hand and I couldn't do anything about it. The next idiom might be a little bit strange. I don't know if it's really, really popular somewhere, but it's quite popular in the US. It is to miss the boat. It means it is too late to do something. For example, I woke up late. Even though I got ready as fast as I could, I still missed the boat. They decided to not hire me. The next thing, and I think is very popular, it is to make matters worse. It means to make a problem worse. For example, to make matters worse, I forgot to lock my door and my laptop got stolen. Another common one is to give someone the cold shoulder. It means to ignore someone. For example, I tried to talk to her, but she gave me the cold shoulder and walked away. The next one is there is no such thing as a free lunch. It means nothing is entirely free. I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I kind of agree with this saying. Everything has a purpose. For example, I met a guy when I was solo traveling. He offered to buy me a drink, and I refused. There is no such thing as a free lunch. He was up to something, I know. Another extremely common idiom is to have a bigger fish to fry. It means to have something more important to do. For example, after I had lost my job, my boyfriend also wanted to break up with me. I didn't care. I had a bigger fish to fry. I needed to find a job. Good for you, girl. The next one is that's the last straw. It comes from the last straw on the camel's back. It means my patience has run out. For example, my boyfriend used to threaten to break up with me whenever we had a fight. That day he called me a bitch. And that was the last straw. And the last one of today's episode is pull oneself together. It means to calm down. For example, I pulled myself together and focused on getting a new job. Now my life is so much better with an amazing job and a fun life with my friends. As a non-native speaker, I do understand the frustrations when it comes to idioms and when it comes to English in general. However, we have to prove that we can speak English. We have to prove that we can use English proficiently. That is why the IELTS exam exists. IELTS can be a little bit intimidating for some people. However, with proper practice and preparation, you will get there. If you want to join my classes, don't hesitate to contact me, and I am always at your service. Thank you very much for joining me in today's episode, and I will see you in other episodes. Bye.